I invited my ex to sabotage my own relationship, watched him destroy my boyfriend at the table, forced my boyfriend to fund the whole disaster, called him cheap for objecting, then had the nerve to demand he apologize to win me back. He walked away and never looked back. I'm going to tell you about the worst dinner in the history of dinner. Not the worst meal. The food was fine. Overpriced. But fine. The worst dinner. The one where I invited my ex-boyfriend to a restaurant, sat him across from my current boyfriend, watched my ex humiliate the man I was supposed to love for 2.5 hours, expected my boyfriend to pay for all of it, called him cheap when he hesitated, and then spent the next week demanding he apologize to me for being upset about it. He didn't apologize. He left. Quietly. Completely. With more dignity in his exit than I showed in the entire relationship. And I've spent the last 8 months trying to figure out how I became the kind of person who does what I did. The answer isn't pretty. The answer is that I was always that kind of person. I just hadn't met a situation ugly enough to prove it yet. My name is Chelsea. I'm 29. The boyfriend I destroyed is named Owen. He's 31. The ex I invited is named Maddox. He's 33. And this is the story of how I orchestrated a dinner so toxic that it ended a 2-year relationship in a single evening. I need to start with Owen because you need to understand what I had before you can understand what I threw away. Owen is an IT project manager. Works from home 3 days a week. Makes decent money. Not flashy money. Not look at my car money. Decent. Stable. The kind of income that pays rent on time and puts groceries in the fridge and saves a little each month for something down the road. Owen doesn't have a Rolex. Owen has a retirement account. Owen doesn't drive a sports car. Owen drives a paid-off Honda. Owen doesn't buy bottle service at clubs. Owen buys books. Actual books. Paper ones. He reads them. On the couch. On Tuesday nights. With his glasses on. Like a 31-year-old man who's decided what kind of life he wants and is quietly building it. I didn't appreciate any of that. I need to say that up front. I looked at Owen's stability and I saw boring. I looked at his savings and I saw cheap. I looked at his quiet Tuesday nights and I saw a man who didn't know how to live. Because I was 27 when we met and my definition of living was loud restaurants and expensive drinks and attention from everyone in the room. Owen's definition of living was peace. And I was too immature to know that peace is the most expensive thing a person can offer you. We'd been together 2 years. Good years. Owen treated me well. Cooked dinner. Planned trips. Remembered dates. Did the things that good partners do without being asked and without keeping score. He met my parents. They liked him. He met my friends. They liked him. He introduced me to his mother, a woman named Ruth who made me banana bread every time I visited and said, "Owen's never been this happy. Don't break his heart." I broke his heart. In a restaurant. In front of his food. While his credit card was on the table. Maddox. My ex. We dated for 1.5 years before Owen. Maddox is everything Owen isn't. Tall. Loud. Takes up every room he walks into. Works in sales. Makes commission money. Feast or famine. When Maddox has money he spends it like the world is ending tomorrow. Bottles at the club. Designer clothes. Weekend trips on a Tuesday. When Maddox doesn't have money he borrows it and calls it investing in the lifestyle. Maddox is also manipulative. Possessive. Jealous. The kind of jealous that starts as flattering and ends as frightening. He checked my phone. Questioned my friendships. Show up unannounced to see where I was. We broke up because I caught him with someone else and even then he made it my fault. Said I wasn't giving him enough attention. Said I'd pushed him away. Classic. So why did I invite him to dinner with my boyfriend? That's the question everyone asks. My friends. My mother. My therapist. Owen's mother Ruth, who called me once after it happened and said, "Chelsea, I need to understand why. Why would a person do that?" The honest answer is control. I wanted to feel wanted. I wanted 2 men at a table competing for me. I wanted to watch Owen see Maddox and feel threatened. I wanted to watch Maddox see Owen and feel jealous. I wanted to sit in the middle of that tension and feel powerful. Like I was the prize. Like I was the center. Like the entire restaurant was watching 2 men orbit around me and I was the gravity holding them both. That's disgusting. I know. I knew it then too. Somewhere underneath the performance I knew exactly what I was doing and I did it anyway because the feeling was more important than the person. Owen wasn't a boyfriend. He was a prop. A piece in a scene I was directing. And I cast him without his consent. Here's how it happened. I told Owen I wanted to go to dinner with some friends. A group thing. He said, sure. Where? I said, Fontaine's. Upscale. The kind of place where entrees start at $38 and cocktails are $17 and the lighting is designed to make everyone look important. Owen said, that's pricey but okay. He didn't complain. Owen never complains about spending. He just budgets. Plans. Make sure it works. That's what responsible people do. I used to see that as weakness. What I didn't tell Owen was that the group thing was 4 people. Me. Him. My friend Kayla. And Maddox. I told Kayla the plan. She said, girl, that's messy. I said, it'll be fine. It's just dinner. She said, Owen doesn't know Maddox is your ex? I said, he knows I have an ex named Maddox. He doesn't know Maddox is coming to dinner. She said, that's messed up, Chelsea. I said, it'll be fine. Stop worrying. It was not fine. We arrived first. Owen and me. He held the door. Pulled out my chair. Ordered water because he was driving. Normal Owen. Considerate Owen. The man who does small things without being asked. Kayla arrived. Then Maddox. I watched Owen's face when Maddox walked in. Owen knew who Maddox was because I'd shown him photos. Talked about him. Probably talked about him too much. Owen's expression went from relaxed to confused to something I can only describe as alert. Like a deer that heard a branch snap. Not running yet. But ears up. Maddox sat down. Across from Owen. He was wearing a $400 shirt. I know because he announced it. He said, just pick this up. $400. Worth every penny. Quality over quantity, right? He looked at Owen when he said it. Owen was wearing a plain navy button-down he'd bought from Target 3 years ago. Owen said nothing. Just nodded. That was the first shot. And Maddox was just warming up. The next 2.5 hours were a masterclass in humiliation. Maddox didn't attack Owen directly. He's too smart for that. He attacked sideways. Through comparison. Through implication. Through the kind of comments that sound like conversation but feel like punches. Owen mentioned he was in IT. Maddox said, oh nice. I thought about getting into tech but I couldn't sit at a desk all day. I need to be out in the world, you know. Meeting people. Closing deals. The energy of the hustle. Desk work would kill my soul. He smiled when he said it. Like it was friendly. It wasn't friendly. It was a man telling another man that his career was a cage. Owen mentioned his Honda. Maddox said, no way. I just got rid of my Honda. Upgraded to an Audi. Life's too short for economy cars, bro. No offense. No offense. The 2 words people use right before they offend you on purpose. Owen ordered the chicken. $34. Maddox ordered the Wagyu steak. $78. Then a bottle of wine. $95. Then appetizers. 3 of them. For the table. Owen watched the bill climb the way you watch a parking meter when you're out of quarters. Not panicking. Calculating. Maddox talked about his apartment. High rise. City view. $3,200 a month. He said, you can't put a price on waking up to that skyline. Then he looked at Owen and said, where do you guys live? Owen said the name of our neighborhood. Modest. Residential. Quiet. Maddox said, oh. That's chill. I had a buddy who lived out there. It's quiet. Like really quiet. He said quiet like it was a disease. Then Maddox went personal. He looked at me. In front of Owen. He said, Chelsea, remember that weekend in Miami? The suite at the Fontainebleau? That rooftop bar? He looked at Owen and said, have you taken her to Miami yet? Owen said, we went to Savannah last year. Maddox said, Savannah. That's cute. Different vibe. Very historical. He said historical the way you'd say boring but with enough cover to deny it later. Owen's jaw tightened. Just slightly. I saw it. Kayla saw it. Maddox saw it. Maddox saw it and kept going. Maddox asked Owen what he was drinking. Owen said, water? I'm driving. Maddox said, water? At Fontaine's? Come on, bro. Live a little. He flagged the waiter. Ordered Owen a whiskey. A $22 whiskey Owen didn't ask for and didn't drink. It sat on the table the entire meal. A $22 glass of amber that represented everything wrong with that evening. A drink ordered for someone who didn't want it by a man who wouldn't pay for it and would be charged to a card that belonged to the only person at the table who didn't deserve to be there. Owen didn't touch the whiskey. Didn't mention it. Didn't send it back. Just let it sit there. Because Owen understood something I was too blind to see. Reacting to Maddox was the game. And Owen doesn't play games he didn't sign up for. He just observes. Files. Decides. I sat there. Through all of it. I didn't intervene. Didn't redirect. Didn't say, Maddox, stop. Didn't say, Owen, I'm sorry. I sat there sipping $17 cocktails and watching my ex tear my boyfriend apart piece by piece, and I felt the thing I'd come to feel. The tension. The competition. The power. Two men at a table and me in the middle, and the room felt electric, and I was so high on the electricity that I couldn't see the damage it was doing to the man sitting next to me. Kayla tried. 3 times. She changed the subject. Talked about her job. Asked Owen about a project he was working on. Each time, Maddox redirected back to himself. Back to his money. His car. His apartment. His lifestyle. Kayla looked at me after the 3rd attempt. Her expression said, do something. I looked away. Owen got quieter as the dinner went on. Not withdrawn. Quiet. The quiet of a man who's assessing. Who's watching? Who's taking in everything and filing it without reacting? I've seen that quiet since in my memory 100 times, and I understand now what it was. Owen wasn't intimidated. Owen was disappointed. Not in Maddox. In me. He was watching his girlfriend sit passively while another man humiliated him, and he was calculating not the bill but the relationship. Whether the woman next to him was someone who would do this to him. Whether this dinner was an accident or a design. It was a design. And Owen figured that out before dessert. The check. $347. For 4 people. Maddox had ordered $200 of it himself. The Wagyu? The wine. The appetizers. A dessert he barely touched. He'd spent like a man who knew he wasn't paying. Because he knew. He looked at me when the check came. He didn't reach. Didn't offer. Didn't even pretend. He leaned back in his chair and smiled. Kayla put down $40 for her meal. Fair. Honest. The only honest transaction at that table. Maddox said, I'll get Owen next time. Slapped Owen on the shoulder. Like they were buddies. Like the last 2 hours hadn't happened. The check sat in front of Owen. $307 remaining after Kayla's contribution. Owen looked at the check. He looked at me. He said, quietly, this was $347. I said, don't worry about it. It's just dinner. He said, he ordered $200 worth of food and didn't put down $1. I said, Owen, don't be cheap. It's one dinner. Cheap. I called Owen cheap. The man who'd spent 2 years cooking me dinner, planning trips, saving money for our future, buying me thoughtful gifts on every occasion and some non-occasions, managing his finances responsibly, paying for more meals than I could count, never once complaining. I called that man cheap. In a restaurant. After his ex-girlfriend's ex-boyfriend had just spent 2 hours humiliating him and ran up a $200 personal tab and didn't contribute a cent. Owen looked at me. Not angry. Something worse. Clear. Like fog had lifted. Like he'd been looking at me through a filter for 2 years and the filter had just been removed and he was seeing the unedited version for the first time. He put his card down. Paid the full amount. $307 plus tip. He tipped 20% because Owen tips 20% even when the evening is the worst of his life. That's who he is? Decent down to the last dollar. Even when the people around him don't deserve the decency. We walked to the car in silence. Maddox hugged me goodbye. In front of Owen. Held on a beat too long. Said, we should do this again. I said, definitely. Owen was already at the car. The drive home. 7 minutes. Owen drove. I talked. I said, that was fun, right? I said, Maddox is a lot but he means well. I said, we should do group dinners more often. Owen said nothing. 7 minutes of me filling silence and him choosing not to fill it back. We got home. He walked inside. He sat on the couch. He took off his glasses. Cleaned them on his shirt. Put them back on. Then he looked at me. He said, why was Maddox there? I said, I told you. Group dinner. He said, Chelsea. Why was Maddox there? I said, he's a friend. Kayla and I thought it would be fun. He said, stop. I'm going to ask you one more time. And if you lie again, I'm leaving this apartment and I'm not coming back. Why was Maddox there? I paused. Something in his voice. The absolute calm. The total absence of bluff. He wasn't threatening. He was stating a fact. One more lie and he's gone. And he meant it. I said, I wanted you to meet him. He said, you wanted me to meet your ex-boyfriend. Who you didn't tell me was coming? Who spent 2.5 hours comparing his car, his apartment, and his salary to mine? Who ordered $200 of food and didn't pay? Who you watched humiliate me without saying a word? You set that up. I said, it wasn't like that. He said, it was exactly like that. You wanted us both at that table. You wanted him to show off. You wanted me to feel small. And then you wanted me to pay for it. Literally pay for it. And when I noticed the bill, you called me cheap. I said, Owen, I didn't mean. He said, I sat in that chair for 2.5 hours being disrespected by a man you chose to put in front of me. And you didn't stop it. Not once. You didn't defend me. You didn't intervene. You watched. You enjoyed it. I saw your face, Chelsea. You were enjoying it. I didn't say anything. Because he was right. I had enjoyed it. The attention. The tension. The feeling of two men aware of each other because of me. I'd enjoyed every minute of it. And Owen had watched me enjoy it. He stood up. He said, I'm going to pack a bag. I'll get the rest of my things this week. We're done. I said, Owen, don't be dramatic. Don't be dramatic. I said that. To the man I'd just ambushed with a dinner from hell. The man who paid $307 for his own humiliation. The man who was leaving because I'd shown him exactly who I was. Don't be dramatic. The phrase of people who cause damage and then police the reaction to it. Don't be dramatic. The sister of you're overreacting and it wasn't that bad and you're making this bigger than it is. I used it like a weapon. The way I'd used it before. With friends. With family. With anyone whose pain inconvenienced my comfort. Owen stopped. He turned around. He said, I'm not being dramatic. I'm being clear. You set me up. You humiliated me. You let another man disrespect me to my face while you watched and smiled. Then you handed me the bill and called me cheap for noticing. That's not a bad night, Chelsea. That's who you are. And I'm done sitting across from who you are. He packed a bag. Left. Drove to a friend's house. I texted him that night. I said, you're overreacting. It was just a dinner. He didn't respond. The next day I texted again. We need to talk about this. Stop being childish. He didn't respond. Day 3. I shifted tactics. I said, I'm sorry you felt uncomfortable. But you need to apologize for walking out like that. For embarrassing me. For making a scene. I asked him to apologize. To me. For leaving a dinner where I'd set him up to be humiliated by my ex. The audacity of that message. The sheer, uncut, weapons-grade audacity. I wanted an apology from the victim for not accepting the abuse gracefully. He responded. One message. His only message. Last words I've ever received from Owen. He said, I paid $307 for a dinner I didn't choose, with a man you didn't warn me about, while you watched me get disrespected for 2 hours and said nothing. You called me cheap for noticing and dramatic for leaving. And now you want an apology. Chelsea, the problem isn't that I walked out. The problem is that I didn't walk out sooner. Don't contact me again. I read that message and for the first time, I heard it. Actually heard it. Not as an attack. Not as drama. As the honest assessment of a man who'd spent 2 years being decent to a woman who didn't know what decent was worth. Who'd spent $307 and his dignity in one night because the woman he loved set him up to feel small so she could feel big. He came for his things when I was at work. Coordinated with my roommate. Clean. Efficient. Took what was his. Left what wasn't. Didn't take anything extra. Didn't damage anything. Didn't leave a note. Just removed himself from my space the way he'd removed himself from my life. Completely. Without drama. Without performance. Oh, and even in his exit was more dignified than I was in my best moment. Kayla called me the next day. She said, I need to say something and you're not going to like it. I said, go ahead. She said, what you did to Owen was cruel. I watched you set that up. I watched you enjoy it. I watched you sit there while Maddox demolished him. And when I tried to redirect, you ignored me. You used Owen. You used Maddox. You used me as an audience for a show nobody wanted to watch. I'm your friend and I'm telling you, what you did was the worst thing I've ever seen someone do to a partner. She paused. Then she said, Owen was the best man you'll ever have. And you fed him to Maddox for entertainment. Kayla and I don't talk as much anymore. Not because she ended things. Because I can't look at her without remembering that she saw me at my worst and tried to stop it and I ignored her. Maddox texted me after the dinner. He said, that was fun. Your boyfriend seems nice. Easygoing. We should do it again. He added a smiley face. A smiley face. Like the evening had been a casual hang. Like he hadn't spent 2 hours systematically dismantling a man's confidence at his own girlfriend's table. I didn't text Maddox back. Because in the aftermath of Owen leaving, I finally saw Maddox clearly. Not as exciting. Not as magnetic. Not as the life I was missing. As a weapon I'd invited to a dinner table. A weapon I'd aimed at the best man I'd ever dated. And fired. While smiling. Owen's mother Ruth called me once. 2 months after the breakup. She said, "Owen told me what happened. I need to ask you one thing. Did you really call him cheap for not wanting to pay for your ex-boyfriend's steak?" I said, "It wasn't like." She said, "Did you or didn't you?" "Yes." She said, "I made you banana bread. I invited you into my home. I told you not to break his heart. You broke it over a dinner check. I hope whatever you felt sitting at that table was worth what you lost walking away from it." She hung up. Banana bread, Ruth? The kindest woman I've ever met. And I made her hang up on me. I'm 29. Single. Living in an apartment that still has some of Owen's taste in it because he's the one who picked the curtains and the throw pillows and the bookshelf layout, and I haven't changed any of it because changing it means accepting he's not coming back. I started therapy 4 months ago. My therapist asked me to describe what I felt at the dinner table. Not what I did. What I felt. I said, powerful. She said, what else? I said, seen. She said, and what did Owen feel? I couldn't answer. Because I'd never thought about it. Not during the dinner. Not during the week after. Not during the text demanding an apology. I never once considered what Owen felt. Because Owen's feelings were never the point. My feelings were the point. Owen was the audience. She said, when was the last time you considered someone else's feelings before your own? I sat there for a very long time. Owen is out there somewhere. Probably reading on his couch on a Tuesday night. Glasses on. Honda in the parking lot. Retirement account growing. Building his quiet life with someone who hopefully knows what that life is worth. I had that life. I was invited into it. He cooked me dinner and planned trips and tipped 20% even on the worst night of his life. And I fed him to a wolf for entertainment. Then called him cheap for bleeding. $307. That's what it cost. Not the dinner. The relationship. 2 years of Owen's love. Paid out in a single check. At a restaurant called Fontaine's. On a Tuesday. $307. Plus tip. Because Owen tips 20%. Even when he shouldn't have to.